I stood there in the middle of the empty office, feeling as if my heart was being torn to pieces. My name is Xander Sloan, 37 years old, and just 2 weeks ago I was still the CEO of Sloan Tech Solutions, a technology company into which I had poured my entire soul. Las Vegas, the city of glittering neon lights and shattered dreams, was now nothing more than the backdrop to my nightmare. I watched the last remaining employees taking down the company sign. The screeching sound of metal against metal was like the mocking laughter of fate. For the past 7 years I had lived for this place. Sloan Tech wasn't just a company, it was my spiritual child, built from absolutely nothing with my own 2 hands. I still remember those early days vividly, when I was just a young programmer sitting in a tiny apartment on the outskirts of Las Vegas, coding until my eyes blurred from sleep deprivation. Countless all-nighters, cold coffee sitting beside me, and so many moments when I nearly gave up. I had sacrificed everything, vacations that never happened, late nights away from my wife and child, and even my own health. Now everything had gone bankrupt. All my efforts, money, time, and pride had officially fallen into the abyss. It felt like someone had stabbed me in the chest and the blood was seeping out drop by drop. But the cause wasn't the brutal market or any financial mistake. It came from the one person I had trusted completely. My wife, Marissa Sloan. She was 34 years old, beautiful enough to turn heads wherever she went, seductive with a smile that could melt anyone. But behind that smile lay ambition and deceit I had never suspected. We met 8 years ago at a tech conference in Vegas. She was a brilliant marketer with flowing golden hair and sparkling blue eyes like a lake. I fell in love with her at first sight. I loved her intelligence, the way she laughed, the way she held me after long, exhausting days. We got married after a year, and our daughter Maren was born like a gift from heaven. I thought I had everything: career, family, happiness. But now I realize it was all an illusion. I still don't know how Marissa managed to have an affair with my direct competitor for nearly 2 years without me suspecting a thing. Colby Voss. That name is now a scar burned into my mind. He was the CEO of Voss Innovations, the company that competed directly with Sloan Tech. We had met at industry events, shaken hands politely but always with caution. I never imagined that while I was struggling with work, Marissa was secretly meeting him. Those late meetings she mentioned, those short business trips, they were all covers. I remember the evenings she came home late, carrying the faint scent of unfamiliar perfume, and I just thought it was from working hard. "That last business trip really wore me out, honey," she'd say, then cuddle up and fall asleep in my arms. I believed her. I always believed her. Then everything exploded. Major contracts, financial reports, everything was stolen. It was Marissa who did it. She had access to my systems because I trusted her as much as I trusted myself. She copied the data and passed it to Colby. He used it to undercut my clients with lower prices and steal our product ideas. When the scandal broke, it was like a bomb going off. One morning I opened my email to a flood of messages from investors. "We no longer have confidence in your company. We are pulling our funding." The media descended like vultures, publishing stories about internal fraud at Sloan Tech. They painted me as an incompetent fool who couldn't control his own company. In just a few weeks, everything collapsed. Employees quit en masse, clients canceled contracts, and the stock price plummeted. I tried desperately to save it, begging on the phone, holding emergency meetings, even selling personal assets to inject cash. But it was useless. I fought back until the very end, but I was completely powerless. Evidence was manipulated and turned against me. Forged emails, doctored documents, everything pointed to me as if I were the mastermind. Marissa denied everything. She cried in front of the cameras, pretending to be the wounded party, claiming I was slandering her out of jealousy. "He's always been suspicious of me. I really don't know anything about this," she said in an interview, tears streaming down her cheeks. And Colby? He used his reputation and connections to crush me completely. He had friends in the media, top lawyers, even government officials. They turned me into the villain and Sloan Tech into a joke. Now standing in the middle of an office being dismantled, I blame myself for being so blind. Why didn't I see it sooner? The little signs, late-night phone calls, hastily deleted messages, the growing coldness in our marriage. Why did I trust someone as scheming and deceitful as Marissa so completely? I clenched my fists, tears rolling down my cheeks without me even noticing. 7 years of building, 7 years of sacrifice. Now there was nothing left but an empty room and the feeling that I had just been erased from existence. The sound of hammers pounding against the walls echoed like blows to my heart. I stepped outside. The desert wind of Las Vegas blew past, carrying dust and pain. I drove home in a daze, like a ghost drifting along the familiar streets of North Las Vegas. My mind was chaos. Images of the gutted office kept replaying on an endless horror loop with no pause button. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white, and I had to force myself to breathe deeply just to keep from swerving onto the curb. The house, the home I once proudly showed off to friends, now appeared before me with a "for sale by bank" sign dangling from the gate like a death sentence for every happy memory. I had poured so much sweat and tears into this place, taking out a mortgage to buy it, renovating every corner, turning it into a sanctuary for my family. Now the bank owned it because I could no longer make the payments. Today was the last day I was allowed inside to collect whatever belongings remained. Just thinking about it made my heart feel like a stone was crushing it. I parked, stepped out on trembling legs. The gate creaked as I pushed it open and the desert wind blew dust into my face. Inside, the air was ice cold, as if the house had already died long ago. The living room was stripped bare. Most of the furniture was gone, only a few cardboard boxes lay scattered around. My heart was pounding, but I was not prepared for what was waiting. Marissa, my wife, the woman I had sacrificed everything for, stood there with her arms crossed, as though she had known exactly when I would arrive. She wore a tight black dress, her golden hair loose over her shoulders. But her eyes were arrogant, full of challenge, as if this were her house alone and I was the intruder. 2 months earlier, after the affair was exposed, Marissa had left the house and moved in with her lover, Colby Voss, in the wealthy Summerlin South neighborhood with its luxurious villas. She took our 7-year-old daughter, Marin, with her, without a single word of explanation. I still remember that night vividly. When I walked through the door, Marissa had already packed everything. She stood in the hallway, suitcase ready at her feet, one hand gripping Marin tightly as she hurried the child along. "Daddy, where is Mommy taking me?" Marin asked, her innocent eyes wide. I knelt down to hug her, but Marissa yanked her away. "Don't make this worse, Xander." Then they were gone, leaving me alone with a pain that tore me apart. Now, seeing her standing there, all the suppressed rage, resentment, and heartbreak exploded inside me like fire. I lunged toward her, voice shaking. "Why, Marissa? Why did you betray me? What did I do wrong? Wasn't I providing enough? Didn't I love you enough? Was I lacking something? Tell me." She only smirked, a cold smile that sent chills down my spine. "You've always been so mediocre and boring, Xander. I've put up with it long enough." Her words cut into my heart like a knife. Mediocre? Boring? I had worked myself to the bone to build a life for us, sacrificing sleep and time with my daughter just to grow the company. Yet now she looked at me like a total loser. She continued her merciless humiliation. "You're a failure, a fake CEO. You're not worthy of being a husband and certainly not a father. With Colby, I finally live according to my true worth. Respected, spoiled, not stuck with a man who only knows how to code and attend meetings." Every word was a punch that made me stagger. I wanted to scream, to demand how she could be so cruel, but my throat closed up. Then Marissa slammed the already signed divorce papers onto the table. The sharp slap of paper on wood rang in my ears. "Sign it and finalize everything immediately," she said, her voice dripping with contempt. "I don't want anything more to do with you." Without letting me say another word, she turned on her heel and walked out, her high heels clicking loudly on the wooden floor, leaving behind a cold, dusty house. I stood there watching her silhouette disappear through the door, emptiness spreading through my entire body. Now I had lost everything: company, home, wife, and child. Tears rolled down again, but this time I didn't wipe them away. I collapsed onto the floor, clutching my head, struggling to breathe. How was I supposed to go on living? Maren, she was my reason for living. Just thinking of her made my heart ache unbearably. I quietly gathered the last of my belongings. A few changes of clothes, a family photo, and my old laptop, everything crammed into a cheap duffel bag. I looked around the house one final time. The kitchen where we used to cook and laugh together. The bedroom where Maren loved to jump on the bed and hug her dad. The backyard where I taught her to ride a bike. Now they were nothing but memories. I got in the car and drove away, carrying whatever scraps of dignity I had left, yet feeling as though part of my soul had died with that house. On the road, I had to pull over because I couldn't drive anymore. I buried my head in the steering wheel and sobbed like a child. In the distance, Las Vegas glittered with its lights, mocking my defeat. With the little savings I had left, about a few $1,000s from an emergency account, I rented a tiny rundown apartment in North Las Vegas. It wasn't far from the city center, but it felt like a slum. Peeling walls, creaking wooden floors, and a moldy smell that hit every time I opened the door. The place had only a single bed, a mini kitchen, and a cramped bathroom with a rusty faucet. I lay on the bed staring at the stained ceiling, wondering how my life had come to this. I survived day to day, eating hot dogs, drinking from public fountains, trying not to think about the past. By day I wandered looking for work, but the scandal still followed me like a shadow. At night, sleep came in fits, haunted by nightmares of Marissa and Colby. About 3 weeks later, the divorce hearing took place. Given my current situation, no home, no steady income, no assets, I lost custody of Maren, the most precious thing in my life. I sat in the courtroom wearing the only old suit I still owned, watching Marissa on the other side with her expensive lawyer. She looked radiant, perfectly made up, while I looked like a beggar. The judge read the ruling. Based on financial circumstances, custody of the child is awarded to Mrs. Marissa Sloan. My heart shattered into pieces. Maren, my little girl with curly hair and a smile just like mine, would now live with her mother and that man. My lawyer whispered, "We never had a chance, Xander." As painful as it was, I had to accept it. I couldn't let my daughter live in poverty with me. At least with her mother, she would have her own room, enough to eat, and no debt collectors at the door. I pictured Maren in Colby's luxurious mansion, playing in a big garden, getting a proper education. That was why I signed the papers, even though my hand was shaking. After the hearing, Marissa didn't even glance at me. She simply turned and walked away. I left the courthouse into the strong Las Vegas wind that whipped sand into my eyes. I cried, but no one noticed. Little did I know that I had only stepped to the edge of the abyss. The tears I shed that night under the streetlights were merely the prelude to the darkest days of my life. I thought I had already hit rock bottom, that there was nothing left to lose. But fate was quietly turning, preparing to bring me to a moment of destiny, a moment that would turn everything upside down in a way I could never have imagined. After the collapse, I started submitting job applications all over Las Vegas. I printed my resume at a cheap copy shop, put on the only old suit I still owned, and went from small offices to big tech companies. I applied for anything: programmer, project manager, even administrative assistant, whatever might stick. I still remember the first day standing in front of a high-rise startup building downtown, heart pounding. I handed in my application, smiled at the receptionist, and waited. But everywhere turned me down. Rejection emails poured in like rain. "Thank you for your interest, but unfortunately we are unable to move forward with your application at this time." Once I called to follow up, and a recruiter told me straight to my face, "The Sloan Tech scandal is still fresh, man. Bankruptcy on your record, all those rumors, you're on every high-risk blacklist. Nobody wants the baggage." Those words cut like a knife. I used to be a hero in the tech scene. Now I was untouchable. Every rejection sent me home to collapse on the floor, hands shaking so badly I couldn't even hold a glass of water. "Xander, what the hell did you do wrong?" I kept asking myself, tormenting myself. Realizing I had no chance at decent-paying jobs, I finally took a janitor position at Caesar's Palace, one of the most famous casinos in Vegas. I remember the interview. I showed up in an old t-shirt, exhausted, standing in front of the manager. "Any cleaning experience?" he asked. "No, but I learn fast," I answered, swallowing hard. He nodded. "Good enough. You start tomorrow." My job was sweeping hallways, pushing trash carts, and mopping the shiny floors under blinding neon lights. The smell of alcohol, cigarette smoke, and the endless clanging of slot machines filled the air. I used to walk into this place as a businessman. Now I just kept my head down and cleaned. Sweat poured off me, my back ached constantly, but I gritted my teeth and kept going. At night, to make ends meet, I delivered pizza for a fast food joint on the outskirts. I drove my beat-up old car in a bright red uniform, racing through the scorching streets. A few dollars in tips per order, enough to buy food and pay rent. Life was brutal and exhausting. 5 hours of sleep at most, wolfing down meals between shifts. But at least I was still standing. One day at a time, I told myself. I even started to feel a little stronger, even if it was just an illusion. One night, after a grueling janitor shift, I took a late pizza delivery. The shop sent me to an address in Summerlin South, the wealthy neighborhood with lush villas and sparkling pools. I drove along wide, tree-lined streets. The night breeze carried the scent of fresh grass and flowers. "Big order, good tip," the boss had said. I didn't think much of it. I just wanted to deliver and go home to crash. When I arrived, the mansion looked like a palace. Tall iron gates, perfectly manicured gardens, lights glowing everywhere. I parked, grabbed the steaming pizza bags, walked up and rang the bell. The chime echoed. The door opened. My heart nearly stopped. There stood my ex-wife, Marissa. We both froze. I hadn't realized this was the house she now shared with Colby Voss. That familiar face, golden hair flowing but now radiating arrogance. She hesitated for only a split second before her usual haughty expression returned. She smirked, voice dripping with mockery. Well, look who it is, Xander. Reduced to this kind of lowly work now? From CEO to delivery boy. That uniform really suits you, bright red and cheap." Her words slapped me across the face. My cheeks burned, blood rushing to my ears. I wanted to turn and leave, but my feet felt glued to the ground. Hearing the voices, Colby strolled out, wearing an expensive polo shirt, wine glass in hand. He looked me up and down and let out a sarcastic laugh. "Not bad, Xander. Very working class. Quite the career downgrade from desk to streets, huh?" The two of them stood arm in arm in the doorway like the perfect couple, staring at me like I was something pathetic. Marissa kept twisting the knife. Maren would be so embarrassed if she knew her dad delivers pizza for a living. She's already used to the good life, you know. Even though shame was burning through me, I straightened my back and gripped the pizza bags tighter. I refused to let them see me break. "I'm proud of my job because I earn an honest living," I said firmly, forcing my voice to stay steady. "At least I don't have to sleep my way to the top or use dirty tricks to survive, unlike some people standing right here." My words made Colby scowl, but Marissa just gave a scornful laugh. Without another word, I set the pizza bags on the front step and turned to leave. My heart was pounding. I just wanted to get out of there. Then I heard a small, familiar voice. "Daddy, did you come to visit me?" Maren came running out of the house and threw herself at my legs, hugging me as if she was afraid I'd disappear. She was in pink pajamas, curly hair messy, big eyes shining with tears. "Daddy, I knew you'd come see me." She started crying, clinging to me. Joy hit me so hard I nearly collapsed. I crouched down, wrapped my arms around my little girl, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair. The only warm moment I'd had in months of ruin. "Baby, Daddy missed you so much," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. Maren buried her face in my chest. "I missed you too, Daddy, so much." But the happiness vanished in an instant. Marissa stormed out, face twisted with fury. "Maren, get inside right now!" She yanked our daughter away from me so hard that Maren screamed and reached desperately back toward me. "Daddy, don't go! Please don't leave me!" I reached for her, but Marissa scooped her up and carried her inside like a gust of wind. Colby stood there, laughing coldly. "See that, Xander? This is our world now. You're just a loser. Get lost." He pulled out his wallet, tossed a few crumpled dollar bills onto the ground, and walked back inside like a king. I stood in front of that mansion, powerless as my daughter was dragged away, another deep wound carved into my heart. Maren's cries still echoed, cutting like knives. I wanted to pound on the door to scream, but I was just a pizza delivery guy who had already lost custody. I turned, walked back to the car with legs like lead. On the drive home, tears blurred everything. I had to pull over to sob. Why is life so unfair to me? I asked myself. The image of Maren reaching out was unbearable. That was the night I truly hit rock bottom, but it was also the night I swore to myself that everything would change. In the days that followed, I kept dragging myself to work every single day, trying to hold my mind together by focusing on the smallest tasks. Early mornings, I put on my janitor uniform and pushed the cleaning cart through Caesar's Palace while the endless clatter of slot machines reminded me of the glamorous life I once brushed against. I scrubbed every corner, sweat dripping onto the gleaming floor, forcing myself not to think about Maren. But the image of my little girl being ripped from my arms haunted me without mercy. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those tiny hands reaching out, heard her cry, "Daddy, don't leave me," echoing in my head. At night, while delivering pizza, I drove through dark streets, the desert wind blowing dust and pain through the open window. I told myself I had to stay strong, had to survive, because one day I would get my daughter back. Yet the pain was a constant shadow, turning sleep into restless fragments and food into something tasteless. One evening, after another exhausting shift, the delivery app sent me to an address that twisted my heart the moment I saw it. The home of Marissa's parents in Seven Hills, Henderson. I stared at the address on my phone, my chest tightening. It was the house I had visited hundreds of times, once filled with laughter and family dinners. Just the thought of going there now made me want to cancel the order. Philip Greer and Colleen Greer, Marissa's parents, had once been like real parents to me. But after the scandal, they turned their backs completely. They never even called to check on me. Even though I dreaded seeing them again, I had no choice. I couldn't risk losing the job that kept me alive. "You're a man. You can't be weak," I told myself, pressing the gas pedal. On the way there, memories flooded back like an old film reel, making my heart race. I remembered the days when Sloan Tech was at its peak. I had saved my father-in-law, Philip Greer, a retired businessman, from a massive tax debt using my company's financial management system. He called me in the middle of the night, voice trembling. "Xander, I'm in trouble. I'm about to lose everything." I sat for hours running analyses with my software, finding loopholes and pulling him back from bankruptcy. "You're my savior, Xander," he said, hugging me with tears in his eyes. As for my mother-in-law, Colleen Greer, I had built her online fashion boutique from scratch. She didn't know anything about technology, so I designed the website, connected suppliers, and even put up the initial capital. "Son, I'm so proud to have a son-in-law like you," she said, kissing my cheek. And Hallie Greer, Marissa's younger sister, I had paid her expensive college tuition for years. Hallie dreamed of becoming a designer, and I sent money every month, encouraging her, "Just focus on your studies. Let me handle the tuition." Back then, the Greer family treated me like a hero, always calling me the man of the family. We gathered around the dinner table laughing, and I thought that happiness would last forever. Now it was nothing but a bitter memory. Even though I knew they had abandoned me, cold messages, total silence after the divorce, I still hoped they wouldn't be cruel enough to crush what little dignity I had left. "Maybe they'll treat me decently," I told myself, clinging to a shred of optimism. I arrived after dark. The house was brightly lit, music drifting from the backyard. I parked on the curb, grabbed the hot pizza boxes, and walked through the gate with my heart pounding. I saw the Greer family and a few guests setting up a small party. A white-clothed outdoor table, flickering candles, the smell of grilled meat in the air. They sat there laughing and chatting, looking exactly like the happy family I once belonged to. I planned to just leave the pizzas on the side table by the door and slip away without being noticed. I kept my head down, walked quickly, praying no one would recognize me. But the moment I stepped into the backyard, almost everyone turned at once. Their eyes locked onto me as if I were some strange animal that had wandered into their territory. My heart stopped. Cold sweat broke out on my neck. I froze, completely unaware that I had just walked into a trap they had set long ago. Philip Greer, dressed sharply in a gray suit and silk tie, burst into loud laughter that made me flinch. "Well, well, look who's delivering food right to our door. It's Xander himself." He said it deliberately loud, pointing at me like I was the evening's entertainment. "From CEO to pizza delivery boy? Fallen this far, huh? You look pathetic, son." His harsh, mocking tone made the guests around him roar with laughter. Colleen Greer, standing haughtily by the table in a glittering evening gown, looked me up and down with pure contempt. "Lucky for my daughter, she saw through your true nature in time and got out before you dragged her down with you," she screeched. "Otherwise, my precious girl would be out here delivering pizza beside you right now. What a total failure." Her words stabbed like knives, my face burned. Hallie Greer, now 26, with pink-dyed hair and flashy jewelry, was filming the whole thing on her phone, recording me in my delivery uniform to post online for laughs. "Come on, ex-brother-in-law, smile for the camera. This video is gonna go viral," she giggled, pointing the phone straight at my face. The guests smirked, pointed, and whispered loudly, "That's Marissa's ex-husband? How sad." From riches to rags in one step. Karma works fast. The whispers spread like wildfire, making me feel stripped naked in front of everyone. And then I saw Marissa and Colby standing together in the corner, arms linked affectionately, watching me with delighted eyes as if they were enjoying the final act of a tragedy they had directed themselves. Marissa smirked. Colby sneered. They whispered something to each other and both burst out laughing. My heart pounded wildly. Blood rushed to my head. Rage exploded inside me. I couldn't stand being surrounded and displayed like an exhibit. "Everybody shut up!" I growled, voice shaking but resolute. I fought back by reminding them of everything I had done for them in the past. "Mr. Phillip, don't you remember? I saved you from tax debt, staying up all night analyzing your files. Mrs. Colleen, I built your online store and invested my own money to get you started. Hallie, I paid your tuition and encouraged you to chase your dreams. I took care of everything. I treated you all like family, and this is how you treat me now?" But they responded with icy contempt. Philip shrugged. "Everything you did was just the duty of someone trying to latch onto the prestigious Greer family. You should be grateful we ever let you in." Colleen added, "That was your good fortune, Xander. Now you're worth nothing." Those words were the final blow. I went numb. Hallie kept filming. "Keep going, this is gold. This part will definitely go viral." Marissa and Colby just stood there silently, watching me with satisfied expressions. I had nothing left to say. My hands trembling, I set the pizza boxes on the table, turned and walked away in silence while waves of mocking laughter mixed with the party music behind me. I stepped out the gate. The night wind blew hard, whipping sand into my eyes. I got in the car and sped off like I was escaping, tears rolling down again. On the drive home, bitter memories flooded back. I remembered the wedding day when Philip clapped me on the shoulder. "Welcome to the family, son." Colleen hugged me. "This family is always open to you." Hallie jumped with joy. "Best brother-in-law in the world." Now it was all lies. I pulled over, punched the steering wheel until my knuckles hurt. "Why are they so cruel?" I sobbed, feeling my last shred of dignity crushed. That was the night I broke completely, but it also ignited a fire of hatred inside me. I swore I would rise again, that I would prove them all wrong. But for now, the pain swallowed everything, and I had no idea that a huge surprise was waiting just ahead. The following days passed in a thick fog. Then one night, after a shift that dragged on until late, I dragged myself back to my rundown motel room, exhausted to the bone, when a knock sounded at the door. I froze while pulling off my filthy shoes. Nobody ever visited this place, a slum filled with noisy neighbors and the constant stench of mold. "Who is it?" I called through the door, voice wary. No answer, just another knock, polite but insistent. I opened the door and there stood an older man, elegantly dressed. He wore a perfectly tailored gray suit, silver hair neatly combed, deep-set eyes behind gold-rimmed glasses. He looked like he had just stepped out of a boardroom, completely out of place in this rundown neighborhood. My heart started racing. Who was he? A debt collector? Someone from my past? The man introduced himself as Harold Ford, his voice deep, warm, and refined. "Good evening, Xander Sloan. I'm here about something important concerning your father." I froze, mouth open in shock. My father, Lawrence Sloan, had died 5 years ago from a sudden heart attack. He had never once mentioned the name Harold Ford. "My father? Who are you? How did you know him?" I asked, my voice trembling, half suspicious, half curious. Harold smiled gently, not the least bit offended. "I was an old friend of Lawrence's. May we speak inside? I promise I won't take much of your time." Out of politeness, despite my doubts, I let him in. The cramped room with its sagging single bed and rickety wooden table suddenly felt even more suffocating. I poured water from the rusty tap, offered him the only chair, and leaned against the wall myself. Harold began to speak slowly, as if opening a dusty old book. He told me that 15 years ago he and my father had co-founded a small startup. It was a piece of enterprise data management software, just two friends passionate about coding and dreaming big. We worked through the nights, ate pizza, laughed about the day we'd make it. Over the years, through growth and expansion, that company had become the multi-billion-dollar giant known today as Archeon Tech, a name I had vaguely seen in the news but never connected to my dad. My heart was pounding. My father? He was just a repairman. Harold shook his head. "Your father was the co-founder of Archeon Tech, but he chose a simple life and kept it hidden from you, so you could stand on your own 2 feet. Harold explained that he had kept my father's original founder shares intact, honoring a final promise. Lawrence told me, "Hold them for Xander until he needs them most." And today, Harold had come to transfer those shares, valued at approximately $120 million, back to me, fulfilling the promise he made to my father. His words hit me like thunder. I couldn't hide my shock and disbelief. $120 million? Me, the janitor pizza delivery guy, suddenly rich? You're joking, right? Haven't I suffered enough? Is this some kind of scam? I jumped up, voice shaking, heart drumming wildly. Harold remained calm. "I understand your suspicion, but this is the truth." I demanded proof, documents, everything. Instead, he simply placed a sealed, aged yellow envelope on the table. "Your father's last letter," he said softly. "All the answers are inside." Then he left his business card embossed with the Archeon Tech logo, told me to come to their headquarters whenever I was ready, and quietly left. The door closed. The room fell deathly silent. My hands shook as I opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter in my father's familiar, bold, slightly slanted script. I sat on the bed, took a deep breath, and began to read. "To Xander, if you are reading this, it means I never got the chance to tell you these things in person. There is something I must confess. I deliberately kept my success with the company and the wealth I quietly held on to all these years hidden from you. I didn't want you to grow up in my shadow or be chained by inheritance and expectations. I wanted you to walk freely on your own path. Son, I never wanted you to be a copy of me. I wanted you to fly with your own wings. I have followed every step you've taken, and I have never once stopped being proud, not because of numbers, achievements, or titles, but because of your character. The way you live with kindness, the way you care for others, and the way you always get back up when life knocks you down. You built Sloan Tech from nothing, with nothing but your sweat and your heart. Whether it succeeded or failed, to me, you will always be my greatest pride. Xander, what I want for you is not money. What I want is for you to always choose to live rightly, to help others, and to keep your conscience clear in every situation. Money can lift you up or drag you down, and I believe you are strong enough not to let it ruin you. The shares I'm leaving behind are not a reward and not a burden. They are simply a safety net, an arm I'm sending from beyond to catch you when you feel you have nothing left to hold on to. When you fall to the bottom, never forget that I am still here in every good choice you make and every time you stand back up. Do not fear failure. Do not fear starting over. And never ever let anyone, not even those you love most, make you doubt your own worth. You were not born to stay down. You were born to go farther than I ever did. If one day you feel sad or lost, remember that I believed in you from the very beginning, and I still believe in you right now. Your father, Lawrence Sloan. I burst into tears the moment I finished. Old memories flooded back like a tidal wave. My mother had died when I was 8 from a terminal illness. After that, Dad raised me alone on simple meals. Instant noodles, cheap sandwiches, canned soup hastily reheated after long shifts at the repair shop. Yet he always found time to teach me programming on the old computer he'd fixed, to show me how to repair electronics, and to tell me that being a good person mattered more than anything. "Son, kindness is worth more than money," he'd say, hugging me after another exhausting day. I remembered the nights he sat by my bed telling stories about the stars and dreams. "One day, you'll do something great." Now I understood he had been talking about himself but hid it so I could find my own way. I sat motionless in the dark room, stunned by the secret about my father and overwhelmed by the love he had quietly prepared for me all these years. 15 years of silence, holding the shares, instructing Harold to wait for the right moment. "Dad, thank you for sacrificing so much to save the best for me," I whispered, tears falling one by one. I finally understood that everything he hid wasn't distance. It was the final protection of a father, making sure the inheritance reached me when I was mature enough to receive it. Not when I was successful, but when I had fallen, so I could learn to rise again. I realized this might be the greatest turning point of my life, the moment my father from the past reached out and pulled me back to my feet once more. That night I lay awake on the sagging mattress, my mind spinning in circles. My father's letter rested beside the pillow, his handwriting still seeming warm to the touch. $120 million. The number echoed in my head like a mad dream. Me, the bankrupt ex-CEO who scrubbed casino floors and delivered pizza, suddenly a multimillionaire? It was beyond comprehension. It terrified and exhilarated me at the same time. What am I going to do with all this money? I stared at the stained ceiling and asked myself that question over and over. Pay off debts, buy a house, fight to get Marin back. But deep down I knew my father didn't want me to use it for revenge or for luxury. He wanted me to stand tall again, live decently, and go farther than he ever did. I tossed and turned, memories of Dad flooding back. Evenings at the kitchen table while he fixed old watches and taught me how to take things apart and put them back together. "Son, anything can be fixed, even a life," he'd say, eyes twinkling. Now he was fixing mine from beyond the grave. Dawn crept through the torn curtains, and I made up my mind. I had to see Harold. This was the moment to act, no more hesitation. The next morning I woke earlier than usual, showered, and put on the only decent suit I still owned, the same one I'd worn to the divorce hearing. I looked in the cracked mirror and saw a different man, eyes still shadowed with fatigue but now carrying a spark of hope. I called my bosses at the pizza place and at Caesar's Palace and asked for one day off, the first time in months. "Family emergency," I said, my voice shaking. Then I drove my beat-up old car to Archeon-Tech's headquarters in downtown Las Vegas, a gleaming glass tower that shimmered under the desert sun. My heart pounded as I parked and looked up at the huge sign, Archeon-Tech. This was my father's empire. I took a deep breath, clutched Harold's business card, and walked into the grand lobby. Marble floors, sharply dressed employees, phones ringing everywhere. I felt like a beggar who had wandered into a palace. I told the receptionist, "I'm here to see Mr. Harold Ford. He's expecting me." She eyed me suspiciously, but after a quick internal call, she nodded. "Mr. Ford is waiting for you on the 20th floor." The elevator climbed. Every floor felt like another beat of my racing heart. The doors opened, and there stood Harold in the same gray suit, smiling warmly. He shook my hand firmly. "Xander, I'm so glad you came. Come into my office." Harold treated me with nothing but courtesy and respect. No trace of pity for my worn suit or my fall from grace. He poured coffee, offered me a comfortable leather chair, and asked gently, "Did you read the letter? Lawrence would be proud of you." I nodded, throat tight. "Yes, sir. I don't know what to say. Thank you for keeping your promise to my dad." Harold smiled. "It was my duty. Now let's make everything official." That very afternoon, an emergency shareholders meeting was called, attended by the company's top executives. Harold had prepared everything. "They need to meet you," he said. I sat in a vast boardroom, polished wood table, giant screens displaying financial charts, while about 20 directors and major shareholders filed in and looked at me with open curiosity. Harold stood and announced in a clear, resonant voice, "Ladies and gentlemen, today is a special occasion. Allow me to introduce Xander Sloan, son of our co-founder Lawrence Sloan." A wave of murmurs swept the room. Many were shocked. Lawrence had a son? Why are we only finding out now? I sat quietly, heart hammering, feeling like a specimen under a microscope. Harold continued, "Lawrence deliberately kept his legacy hidden so Xander could make his own way. Today, in accordance with his will, Xander will receive Lawrence's founding shares." Lawyers entered, presented documents, signatures, even DNA evidence. Everything was verified quickly and without dispute. I signed the papers with trembling hands as if in a dream. $120 million, now officially mine. Harold proposed appointing me as Director of Special Projects, overseeing research and new growth directions for the company. "Xander has real experience from Sloan Tech," he said. "He'll bring fresh perspective." The room fell silent for a moment. Then an older, silver-haired man, probably the vice chairman, spoke up. "Mr. Ford, with all due respect, the boy bankrupted Sloan Tech amid a scandal. How can we trust him? This is just nepotism because of founding blood." Others nodded in agreement. "A bankruptcy on his record disqualifies him from leading any project. We need experts, not failures." The words cut deep, dragging up memories of the scandal, Marissa, the Greer's humiliation. My face burned, but I stayed silent and simply nodded. I understand what everyone is thinking. I'll prove myself. Harold backed me. Give the kid a chance. Lawrence would have wanted it. I started immediately. Quietly, I began learning everything from scratch. Archeon's technology stack, its complex management systems, billion-dollar internal finances, global market models. I spent hours in the company library reading documents, asking questions of younger colleagues who at first looked at me strangely. I worked late, cold coffee beside me, just like the early days of Sloan Tech. Thanks to courage, humility, and the hard lessons from Sloan Tech's collapse, betrayal, risk management, human nature, I quickly proved my worth. Within weeks, I presented bold proposals integrating next-generation AI into core products, optimizing data flows to cut costs by 20%. At first, they were skeptical. Too risky. But I backed everything with data, and once implemented, Archeon posted record-breaking 15% revenue growth in a single quarter. My focused, no-nonsense work style and accurate decision-making gradually turned skeptics into supporters. The vice chairman who had mocked me eventually clapped me on the shoulder. Good job, Xander. Sorry I doubted you. Colleagues invited me for coffee, brainstormed ideas together. I felt alive again, only this time more humble. The board officially recognized me as a key strategic driver behind Archeon's expansion into 3 new continents, Europe, Asia, and South America. I led the projects, negotiated contracts, flew to Berlin, Tokyo, São Paulo. On every trip I thought of my father. Dad, can you see what I'm doing? I've gone farther than you. Success was healing medicine. Yet I still ached for Maren and carried the scars of the past. With solid finances behind me, I rented a spacious, comfortable house in Henderson, a quiet neighborhood with green parks not far from Vegas. 3 bedrooms, modern kitchen, backyard with a small pool. I moved in, bought new furniture, a real bed, a big desk. For the first time in months, I slept deeply without nightmares. This was a new chapter. No more rundown apartments, no more manual labor. But I never forgot my roots. I kept Dad's letter on my desk as a constant reminder to live decently. The first months at Archeon Tech passed like a whirlwind, sweeping me into a relentless cycle of meetings, proposals, and major decisions. I worked like a man possessed, but this time it was fueled by genuine passion. Not mere survival, but the need to prove myself, to my father, and to everyone who had ever spat on my name. After 6 months, I completed the project that had stumped the company for 2 full years. A fully integrated global AI data optimization system that put Archeon head-to-head with giants like Google and Amazon. Top engineers had given up on it, too complex, too risky, too expensive. But I, armed with the brutal lessons from Sloan Tech, knew exactly how to manage risk. I spent nights in the office coding and testing just like the old days. "Dad, I'm doing what you taught me," I whispered as I fixed the final bug. When the system finally ran perfectly and trial revenue jumped 25%, the entire team erupted in cheers. Harold clapped me on the shoulder. "Lawrence would be so proud of you, Xander." My heart swelled, but it also raced. This success was about to change everything. To celebrate, the company held a major press conference to announce the breakthrough, honor the project team, and reveal several high-level personnel changes, including my official emergence as the second-generation founder. The event took place in Archeon's grand auditorium, flashing cameras, packed rows of reporters. I stood backstage gripping the microphone, heart pounding like it had the first time I ever pitched Sloan Tech. "Calm down, Xander, you've got this," I told myself, taking a deep breath. Harold stepped to the podium. "And today it is my great honor to introduce Xander Sloan, son of our co-founder Lawrence Sloan, and the man who led this breakthrough project to success." I walked onto the stage amid stunned silence from the press. A disgraced, bankrupt ex-CEO, once destroyed by scandal, was now standing in the spotlight of a multi-billion-dollar tech empire. Whispers rippled through the crowd. "That's the Sloan Tech guy." From rock bottom to the top again? No way. I smiled, voice steady. "Thank you all. This project isn't just about the future of technology. It's also my own lesson in rising after falling." Cameras flashed nonstop. It felt like a dream, but I was also nervous. This news would spread far. The media exploded. Forbes, Bloomberg, TechCrunch, every major outlet in Las Vegas and California ran the story. A bankrupt ex-CEO suddenly revealed as a $120 million founding heir and key strategist at a tech giant. Headlines screamed, "From bankruptcy to billions, Xander Sloan's real-life fairy tale." Rags to Riches 2.0, the comeback nobody saw coming. Podcasts, finance segments, and local Vegas news devoured my story as the ultimate rise from the ashes. They interviewed old colleagues, dug up the Sloan Tech scandal, Marissa's betrayal, and my father's hidden legacy. One popular podcast asked me live, "What got you back on your feet after everything?" I answered simply, "My father, and the fact that I never stopped believing in myself." The news spread like wildfire. I knew the Greer house had seen it too. Sitting in my new home, scrolling through articles on my laptop, my pulse quickened. What will they think now that I've made it? I wondered, picturing Marissa staring wide-eyed at her phone. A few days later, my phone rang. Marissa's number. My stomach dropped. The moment I heard my daughter's name, my heart melted. "Xander. Maren wants to see her daddy," she said, voice dripping with fake sweetness as if nothing had ever happened. During my months of unemployment and despair, I had been too ashamed to fight for visitation. I didn't want Maren to see her father broken, penniless, hopeless. I still remembered nights in that filthy apartment, clutching her photo and crying, "I'm not worthy to see you like this." Even after I stabilized and begged to see her, calling, texting, pleading, Marissa always had an excuse. "She's busy with school. She's already asleep. This week isn't convenient. So when she suddenly called first, I knew exactly why. She'd seen the headlines. She knew I was rich again. Still, I agreed instantly, just for the chance to see my daughter. Fine. When? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm while my heart raced. We arranged to meet at a neutral cafe. I arrived early, sat with a cold coffee, nerves jangling like a first date. When I walked in, only Marissa was there, no Maren. She wore a bright red dress, perfect makeup, that old seductive smile. But now I saw the calculation behind it. My heart sank. Where's my daughter? Why can't I see her? She brushed it off. She's with her grandparents. Then immediately pivoted to money, demanding $12,000 a month in child support. Maren deserves the best now, Xander. That's pocket change for you, right? She winked, voice syrupy. I understood perfectly. She had come running the moment she learned about my inheritance. But I still agreed, because it was my duty to give my daughter a better life. Fine. I'll transfer the money, I said, swallowing hard. But inside, suspicion flickered. What else does she want? In the weeks that followed, the demands never stopped. $2,000 for piano lessons, $5,000 for an elite summer camp, then endless expenses for Maren. Designer clothes, expensive toys, even Vegas show tickets. Every call ended with, "She really loves that new dollhouse, Xander." I paid, but unease grew. Whenever I asked to video call Maren, the excuses returned. She's asleep. She's at a lesson. She's with Grandma. Tomorrow, I promise, she'd say. Tomorrow never came. After weeks of sending absurd amounts while being denied even a single visit, alarm bells rang louder. Every new text demanding money made my skin crawl. Something dark was lurking behind all this. I could feel it. I knew something was very wrong. One afternoon, while I was in a meeting with the team discussing expansion into new markets, my phone vibrated. Unknown number, but a Las Vegas area code. I excused myself and stepped into the hallway to answer. A young woman's polite voice came through. "Mr. Sloan, this is Ms. Harper, Maren's homeroom teacher from Summerlin Elementary. I need to speak with you about your daughter." My heart instantly clenched. The teacher? Why was she calling me? Marissa was the primary custodian, but the school must still have my old contact info. I took a deep breath. "Yes, hello. What's wrong with Maren?" There was a slight hesitation before she continued. "Maren has been showing some concerning signs lately. Her attendance has been irregular. Some days she arrives very late because no one could drop her off. Other days she's absent without explanation. Recently she's been coming in with dark circles under her eyes, looking exhausted and falling asleep in class. I'm worried, Mr. Sloan. Her mother says everything is fine, but I felt I should let you know." Her words froze me in place. I leaned against the wall, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles went white. All the luxurious life Marissa had described, the mansion, the good school, the expensive toys, was the exact opposite of what the teacher was describing. Maren falling asleep in class, no one picking her up or dropping her off. My heart pounded like it was being squeezed in a vice. After hanging up, I stood motionless in the hallway for a long time, chest tightening with every breath. My little girl was not okay, and Marissa had hidden it all. The image of Maren the last time I saw her at the mansion flooded back, thin, sad-eyed, running to hug me like she was afraid I'd disappear. "Daddy, I missed you so much." Her voice echoed in my head. I remembered the sleepless nights in that filthy apartment, blaming myself for not fighting for custody sooner. Now, with money and status on my side, I could no longer sit still. I have to act before it gets worse, I told myself, standing up with burning resolve. No more waiting. I rushed to my car and sped straight to the Summerlin South mansion. The Las Vegas freeway blurred beneath the tires, desert wind roaring through the open window. But all I could think about was Maren. "Daddy's coming now, sweetheart," I whispered, pressing the accelerator harder. My heart hammered with dread about what I might find. When I arrived, the mansion gleamed under the late afternoon sun, still as luxurious as ever. But to me it now looked like a prison. I pulled up fast, jumped out, and immediately heard shouting from inside. Colby bellowing, Marissa arguing, and a child crying, "Maren!" The front door was unlocked. They were probably too busy fighting to notice. I didn't knock. I walked straight into the living room, heart pounding like it would burst. The scene in front of me turned my blood to ice. Maren was huddled in the corner, eyes red from crying, clutching her pale pink pajamas, the floor littered with glittering shards of a broken glass. She looked tiny, trembling with dark circles under her eyes, exactly as the teacher had described. Colby was roaring, face flushed with rage, wearing a wrinkled polo shirt. He had Maren's wrist gripped so tightly her little fingers were white. "How many times do I have to tell you to be careful? You break a glass and then cry about it? You think tears will make me let it go?" He was screaming at her for accidentally dropping a drinking glass. An ordinary childhood accident. Marissa stood behind him, arms crossed, wearing a short dress, hair messy, not trying to stop him at all. She looked annoyed, as if Maren were disturbing their peace. "Just leave her, Colby. Let the kid clean it up herself," she said irritably, without a trace of compassion. In that instant, something inside me snapped. Blood rushed to my head and pure paternal instinct took over. I charged forward and shoved Colby away from my daughter with all my strength. He stumbled backward, crashing into the sofa, eyes wide with shock. "You, Xander? How the hell did you get in here?" I didn't answer. I pulled Maren behind me, shielding her with my body, the instinct of a father who had endured too much for too long. She burst into tears and clung to me. "Daddy, I'm so scared. He was going to hit me." I knelt down, wrapped her in my arms, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair as tears rolled down my own face. "I'm here now, baby. You don't have to be afraid anymore." But the rage still boiled inside me. I looked at Marissa, once my wife, the mother of my child, and saw only cold cruelty in her eyes. Not a shred of remorse, not a single word of apology, not the slightest attempt to protect her own daughter. She just stood there, arms crossed, face pale with surprise, but still clinging to arrogance. "What are you doing in my house?" I confronted them both, voice shaking with fury. "Why are you neglecting Maren? Why are you abusing her? Why are you letting a child live in fear like this? Her teacher called me. She's falling asleep in class. No one picks her up or drops her off. She has dark circles under her eyes." "What kind of parents are you?" Marissa looked away, dodging the question. "Don't slander us. She's just tired from extra lessons." Colby, dusting himself off as he stood, kept blaming Maren. "The kid's clumsy. I was just disciplining her. Stay out of it." He stepped forward, face red, but I stood firm in front of my daughter, staring him down. "Don't you dare touch my child." While we argued, Marissa shouting, "You have no right," and Colby growling, "Get out of my house or I'm calling the cops." Maren trembled and clung to my leg, terrified that if she let go, she'd be dragged back into that hell. She sobbed, "Daddy, don't leave me here alone." When I saw the purple bruises on her little arm, clear finger marks from Colby's grip, I knew the line had been crossed. No more negotiating, no more giving in. I had to get my daughter out now. "Enough!" I roared, voice echoing through the room. "I'm taking my daughter with me." I scooped Maren into my arms. She buried her face in my shoulder, sobbing uncontrollably. She felt frighteningly light, thinner than I remembered, and the smell of fear on her broke my heart. Marissa lunged forward, trying to grab her. "You can't take her. I'll call the police." I pushed her away and strode out of that toxic house while she screamed behind me, "Xander, stop! You'll regret this!" Colby kept cursing. I didn't look back once. I carried Maren to the car, the desert evening wind blowing hard as if urging us on. I buckled her into the back seat, then drove away, heart pounding like a drum. "Daddy, I don't ever want to go back there," Maren whispered, eyes still red. I gripped the steering wheel tightly and swore to myself. From this day forward, my daughter would never live in fear again, not for a single second. The very next morning, I contacted my lawyer and filed an emergency lawsuit against Marissa and Colby for child abuse, neglect, and misuse of custodial rights. I called the same attorney who had handled my divorce. "I have evidence, bruises, the teacher's statement, and my daughter's own testimony," I told him. He responded instantly. "With your current position and their prior scandal, we have a huge advantage. I'll draft the emergency petition today. I photographed Marin's bruises and recorded her trembling account of life in that mansion. She whispered, "Mommy always goes out with him and leaves me home alone. He calls me a nuisance." My heart shattered, but I stayed calm so she wouldn't be afraid. The court accepted the case immediately and scheduled a hearing within weeks. The media exploded. Headlines screamed across every outlet. "Millionaire Xander Sloan sues ex-wife for abusing daughter." Reporters camped outside my house, cameras flashing, but I refused interviews. "I'm only doing this to protect my child." The evidence we presented was overwhelming. Marin's tearful testimony to the attorney and child advocate, the teacher's written report on her declining condition, photographs of the bruises, a neighbor's sworn statement about hearing Colby scream at her through open windows, medical reports confirming the injuries. The hearing was packed with journalists. Marissa sat on the opposite side in a black dress perfectly made up, crying crocodile tears. "He's slandering me. I gave our daughter the best life. I love her." Colby didn't even show up, probably hiding. The judge watched Marin's recorded testimony. In her tiny voice, she said, "I want to live with Daddy, because Daddy never hits me." I cried silently in the courtroom as I watched it again. The ruling was clear. The environment with Marissa was unsafe. Full custody was awarded to me. Marissa's visitation rights were restricted to supervised visits only, and she was ordered to undergo mandatory psychological counseling. When the decision was read, I hugged my lawyer. Thank you so much." Marissa wailed as she was let out, but all I could think was, my daughter is finally safe. A new life with Marin began. At first, she woke up screaming from nightmares, but I sat by her bed and told her stories about Grandpa Lawrence. He was a real superhero who hid treasure for Daddy. She would giggle through her tears. "Really? Where did Grandpa hide it?" I hugged her tight. "Right inside your heart, sweetheart." Slowly the nightmares faded. She slept better, laughed more, and stopped flinching at shadows. We rode bikes in Henderson's parks, me jogging behind her, both of us laughing. Our house filled with warmth after months of chaos, the smell of cookies baking, children's music from her room. Movie nights cuddled on the couch. I took time off work to be with her and hired a trustworthy nanny for when I was away. Marin started attending school regularly again. Her teacher called, "She's like a different child, happy and full of energy." Watching her play by the pool under the sun, I felt complete. "You are my whole world, Marin." Meanwhile, Colby's company imploded under a storm of financial scandals, falsified reports, fake investment funds, bribery, inflated revenue. It was Voss Innovations, the same company that had crushed Sloan Tech. A whistleblower exposed everything. The media descended like vultures. Shareholders fled, clients vanished, and the firm collapsed. Assets were seized for investigation. Colby lost everything and faced criminal charges, prison and massive fines. He fled Las Vegas in secret, probably to Mexico or somewhere else. I never found out. Marissa was abandoned by Colby, drowned in personal debt from her extravagant lifestyle and ruined by the abuse scandal. Headlines read, "Ex-wife of millionaire Xander Sloan broke and stripped of custody." She lost her job, her friends, everything. The Greer family, who had backed her, began crumbling too. Bad investments in Voss stock. Colleen's online store bankrupted by the fallout. Philip losing major contracts tied to Colby. They called me begging, "Xander, please help us." I replied politely, "I'm sorry, but my only responsibility now is Marin." When I heard their family was falling apart, my feelings were mixed. Satisfaction that betrayal had consequences, yet sadness because they had once been family. Sitting on the balcony as the desert wind blew, I thought, life is fair, but why does it still hurt? One day, Marissa showed up at my office looking broken. Messy hair, dark circles, old clothes. My assistant brought her in. She sat trembling and burst into tears. "Xander, please forgive me. I know I was wrong." She begged me to save her and her family, reminiscing about our wedding under the Vegas lights, the night Marin was born, our old vacations, hoping 10 years of marriage would soften me. "I was deceived by Colby. Please give me one more chance." Her words tugged at memories I had buried, but I refused, not out of hatred, but because that chapter was closed forever. I now lived only for my daughter and our new life. Marissa, I can't help you. The past is over. Accept the path you chose and please don't contact me again, I said calmly. She wailed, fell to her knees and begged, but I stood firm. I called my assistant. Please escort her out. As she was led away sobbing, how can you be so cruel? I closed the door, heart heavy but resolute. When the door shut, I knew every betrayal, every storm was finally behind me. All that remained was the peace Marin and I shared. I went home. She ran to the door. Daddy's home. I missed you so much. We ate dinner, laughed, and I thought, thank you, Dad. Thank you, life. A quiet thrill still lingers. This is our new beginning, scars and all. I hold my daughter as she falls asleep and swear I will protect her forever. The first days after winning custody of Marin felt like a fragile dream, one that might shatter if I breathed too hard. I woke up early every morning just to watch her sleep peacefully in her own room, the one I had hastily decorated with star-patterned wallpaper and teddy bears, and wondered if it was all real. She still woke up in the middle of the night crying from nightmares about Uncle Colby yelling, and I would sit on the edge of her bed, stroke her hair, and invent stories about dogs that flew across clouds to chase the fear away. Daddy's here now, baby. No one will ever hurt you again, I whispered, holding her so tightly I could feel her tiny heart racing. She calmed down little by little, but I knew heart wounds don't heal overnight. Our new life was built on small things. Toast and fruit for breakfast, driving her to school in a new car, no longer that rattling old wreck, and afternoons at Henderson's green parks where the trees and birdsong felt like a lullaby. I worked less and put her first, yet a quiet anxiety lingered. Would Marissa come back? Would Colby try to retaliate? I installed security cameras and hired a guard, but deep down I knew true peace had to come from within. 3 months later, when Marin was laughing more and crying less at night, I decided to buy a bigger, brighter house. Moving day made her bounce with joy. Our new house is so pretty, Daddy. Can we get a puppy? I laughed. Of course, sweetheart. We'll pick the cutest one. We unpacked, hung family photos, some of them AI-generated collages of Mom, Dad, and Marin, and the place quickly became a real home. Standing on the balcony, feeling the gentle breeze while she played on the swings below, I thought, life is starting over. I took Marin to a child therapist to help her recover from the neglect and abuse. I still remember the first session. She clung to my hand in the waiting room, eyes wide with fear. Daddy, I don't want to talk to the lady. Dr. Elena, a kind middle-aged woman, sat on the floor with toys and asked softly, Good girl, what's your favorite thing to draw? Slowly, Marin opened up. She drew dark pictures of a bad house with grown-ups shouting, but week by week the colors brightened. Pictures of Daddy and a puppy. Thanks to my patient evenings listening without pushing, Dr. Elena's weekly sessions, and a home filled with nothing but safety, no yelling, no abandonment, Marin gradually returned to the cheerful, affectionate little girl she used to be. She started singing in the shower, begged to take art classes, and hugged me every morning. I love you the most in the whole world, Daddy. I cried quietly when Dr. Elena said, Marin is healing beautifully, Mr. Sloan. Just keep being her rock. Some sessions were hard. She would sob and ask, Does Mommy hate me? I held her close. No, baby. Mommy just got lost. But Daddy will never leave you. Slowly the scars faded and Marin's smile became brighter than ever. Meanwhile, my career kept rising. Because of my standout contributions, the hugely successful AI project, market expansion, and 30% revenue growth, Archeon's board promoted me to Vice President of Strategic Development, one of the most influential positions in the entire corporation. At the internal announcement, Harold put a hand on my shoulder. You deserve this, Xander. Lawrence would be so proud. Standing on the small stage while colleagues applauded, I said, Thank you all. My past failures taught me more than any success ever could. And today I just want us to keep pushing farther together. The new role brought huge responsibilities, global strategy, billion-dollar negotiations, constant flights to Europe. But I kept balance, Worked from home whenever possible, dropped Maren at school, and saved weekends for her. "Want to go to the zoo this Saturday?" I'd ask. Her eyes would light up. "Really? I want to see the monkeys." 2 years passed, and life for Maren and me became more stable and beautiful than I had ever dared hope. She was 9 now, tall with long curly hair, the most energetic kid in her class. We had Buddy, a golden retriever with shining fur, racing around the backyard. I still worked hard, but family came first. Camping trips, cooking together, bedtime stories. One day, at an Archeon Tech conference in Vegas packed with hundreds of guests, I met Yara Hart, a gentle, intelligent, deeply empathetic UX designer. She stood at the buffet in a pale green dress, brown hair loose, blushing when I asked about her project. I design interfaces that are easier for kids to use. We talked, and I was drawn to her warmth. No flash, no ruthless ambition like Marissa, just sincerity and the ability to truly listen. "Your daughter sounds adorable. I hope I get to meet her one day," she said, eyes sparkling. I asked her for coffee after the event, and that was the beginning. Yara quickly bonded with Maren. Their first meeting at our house, Yara brought picture books and colored pencils. "I heard from your dad that you love drawing." Maren was shy at first, but soon she was holding Yara's hand, chattering about school and treating her like the first grown-up friend she'd ever had. "Miss Yara, will you draw with me?" She grinned. Yara sat on the floor and drew patiently while Maren talked about the old ugly house and the mean man. I watched from the doorway, heart full. She really understands my little girl. My relationship with Yara grew naturally and warmly. Coffee dates, park walks, sharing our pasts. She had lost her own father young, just like me, and we connected on a deep level. Before long, we became a real family. Yara moved in. We married quietly in Henderson Park with Maren as our flower girl. A family where Maren was truly loved, with no more fear or shouting hanging over her. "Daddy and Mommy Yara love you so much," she would say, hugging us both. I looked at Yara, overflowing with gratitude. "Thank you for coming into our lives." One crisp autumn morning, the three of us drove to visit my father's grave. The wind was gentle, dry leaves rustling underfoot, the air cool with the scent of earth. We parked at the quiet cemetery on the outskirts of Vegas where Dad rested beneath an old olive tree. Maren carried a bouquet of white daisies, his favorite, and skipped ahead. "Grandpa, we came to see you." I laid the flowers on the stone-engraved Lawrence Sloan, holding Maren's hand on one side and Yara's on the other. Staring at his name, every memory rushed back. The dark days of bankruptcy, the empty office, Marissa's betrayal and the affair scandal, losing my home, my child, cleaning casino floors and delivering pizza, the Greer's humiliation, Dad's letter, the inheritance, rising again at Archeon, rescuing Maren from hell, the courtroom battles, and now this happiness. All the times I thought I was finished, an invisible hand, my father's, had quietly lifted me at the exact moment I needed it most. "Dad." I went farther. I whispered, tears falling. In that moment, I understood the message I wanted to leave for anyone still suffering. No matter how many times life knocks you down, as long as you refuse to let go of yourself, you can always stand back up. Never let someone else's betrayal define your worth. Happiness doesn't come from what you lost, but from having the courage to keep walking and rebuild what you truly deserve. I smiled, squeezing Maren's and Yara's hands. I knew every storm was finally behind us. Ahead lay only a peaceful, complete road. The one I had fought for and won for myself and for my daughter.